Right, with part 2 of the podcast, bringing on with Mr. Bob Cranmer, the co-author of The Demon of Brownsville Road, an amazing book, that I've had a chance to read in 2 nights, and I could have read it in 1 night if it wasn't for an investigation that I had at the Moon River Brewery in Savannah, Georgia. Out of all places, this is if I have to give one advice for somebody, if you can read this book in Savannah, the most haunted city in the United States of America, that's a cool thing. I don't know if you've had the chance to go to Savannah, Georgia.
Me? No, I've not, no.
Oh, it's an amazing town, It's like, to me, investigating it, just the beauty of the town itself is incredible. But, it was on my to-do list, and I want to go back and go back there, soon and investigate. There's so many beautiful places, beautiful cemeteries and incredible places. But in Pittsburgh, actually in Pennsylvania, it's like it's incredible. There's 300 teams, paranormal teams, just in Pennsylvania. If you can believe that.
Wow.
It's like the mecca of paranormal investigation. It probably has to do with the history. There's so much history in Pennsylvania. In Pittsburgh, in Philadelphia, in Eastern State, Fort Mifflin, and Penhurst Asylum, and a lot of great places. And do you think that the land, the fact that, the older, the land is, or the story of the place can have more, the longer the story goes to a place, you can have, more reasons to have activity. That if you build a place out of the middle of nowhere, nobody ever lived before. Do you think that it actually spiked things up?
Well, Pennsylvania, so much happened here, from the founding of settlements in North America, and Pennsylvania was right there at the forefront, and then Western Pennsylvania was a very dangerous place to be for a long time. When there's a lot of turmoil and, killings and, however that leads to haunted places and ghosts. Look at the battlefield, the Gettysburg battlefield. That is a truly amazing place to go if you want to see paranormal activity. Absolutely amazing. There's just so much that goes on there nightly. I'm not surprised that Pennsylvania is central to activity.
It is. And we have Tammy, on Twitter, Tammy Miller, asking you, Bob, the most scary experience that you've ever had inside the house. And there's a lot of things that happen, but what is the thing that, scare you the most?
Well, I think that one thing that, got my attention initially was when it first, kind of assaulted me or scratched me physically. I woke one morning and I had scratches that started underneath my right ear and went diagonally down across my neck, across my chest, to my left side, underneath, my nightshirt that was buttoned up. And yet these scratches were placed on me like the shirt wasn't even there. Once that happened, I started to realize that this thing isn't playing around. This is serious business. So that's when I started to really be concerned as to what we were getting into.
Yeah, no kidding. And, right now you're still, that's the thing we were talking about before the podcast, you're still living inside the house, right?
Sure. Yeah, if I live there, it's a nice IPO, it's a nice, some other people may not, but I think it's a peaceful place. And the Blue Room, which is, kind of a center of the story, that's my wife and I's our bedroom now.
That's incredible, because the Blue Room was the most active place inside the house with the basement. And, at one point, that you deserted the Blue Room when you found out that too much stuff happening. And that's when you put the movie Passion of the Christ, playing 24/7. And after that, reading your book, that became the most peaceful room in the house.
Well, I think so. I like it. And, I have to say that about the whole house, though. I mean, up until that point, the battle, the house never had a homey feel to it. But after the fact, I mean, now it certainly does, and it's a big old place, and it's a lot more house than we ever needed to begin with, and it's certainly more of a house than we need now. And I don't know if I don't know if I could ever sell it if I wanted to now, but I don't know if I could really leave it. Maybe we may turn it into a bed and breakfast or something, but it's definitely my home.
It does, and you fought for your home. It's not as if it's kind of like you deserve now to stay in this place and be peaceful there. If somebody ever heard the word deserving to live in his home, that's you fought for it. You almost what else could have happened that didn't happen? Nothing. You gave up your almost your career for it and your family. That's absolutely amazing. To me, it's a testament of strength. And like my friend Glenn says, of inner strength and love. And that's the one thing about the book, is that it's not just about paranormal. It's about inner strength and never giving up. And that's the kind of thing that can influence people in the future. Like you said about the paranormal, whenever something happens supernatural, is that if you don't give up and you stand your ground, you have a chance. But you have to be.
Well, I mean, I think that. I depict it that way. I try to depict, as having the courage to stand up to this evil. And again, I had courage. It's one thing to see a grizzly bear and foolishness to try to stand up to a grizzly bear on your own. But if you have a 30-06 in your hands, it's a different story. Well, I eventually realized I had weapons. I had weapons to use. So it wasn't so much a reckless confrontation that, I knew that I had weapons at my disposal. I had support, not only, support on the ground through priests and other people that were here to help me, but also, supernatural support, angelic forces, and so on. So I did have the ability to have courage in the weapons that I had, and again, reading some comments that people make that I did that in some boastful way. Well, I just recorded and I wrote exactly what happened and what I was thinking at the time. So again, if people some way have issues with that, it might be because they don't know how they would act in a similar situation.
Exactly. Another part of the book, I found very interesting is the oak tree behind the house. Where you actually found like 4 great gravestones. Tell me more about what you had a team over there, to with breathtaking, ground penetrating radars to do a survey of the ground, and they found out these tombstones. And what was your reaction when you found out about it?
Well, I had been told this story of what the significance of this tree was, that it was planted there as a sapling, as a memorial to mark the graves of this man's family, these children and his wife who had been massacred. And as I'm told this story again, I want to dig. I don't want to say dig a little deeper, because I wasn't going to dig the graves up, but I did the next best thing, and I hired a professional company that their job is to find things that are buried underground, and usually they're looking for gas lines and water lines and other things, but they're so good at what they do, they can tell if the ground has ever been dug up or ever been disturbed. They can tell virgin ground or ground that's been moved, and I hired them and paid them a good chunk of money to come and to scan the area, and certainly they scanned it for well over an hour and came to the conclusion that it was in keeping with a grave site, and they were able to see the remains of 4 horizontal figures in the ground 4 to 6 feet down. So all of that just was more confirmation to me as to what had taken place.
My God, you're right. You're right. And the blood coming from the wall. I also looked at your documentaries on your website. By the way, if people want to go and check the website, it's demonofbrownsville.com. And, excerpts from your book. And, there's actually a documentary that people can look on YouTube, about your story. That was shown on Discovery Channel called The Exorcist Files, and that's an amazing, documentary. I watched it all this afternoon, and but there's also other, pieces of, incredible information, from Pennsylvania, like the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and I was looking at one of them where you add that piece of wallpaper still in your home, and you showed it to the person asking you a question, and her look was absolutely like, oh my goodness. It's one thing to hear about a story, and a lot of people say, oh, this happened, that happened, and you're like, oh yeah, whatever, but to actually see it with your own eyes, it's so different.
People say, well, why didn't you take pictures of it? Well, I did take pictures of it, and oh, by the way, I still have it too.
That's incredible.
Why didn't you get it tested? Well, I have had one of the best laboratories in the United States test that fluid, and when they come back and say, we don't know what it is, we can tell what it's made of, it makes no sense what it is, and we certainly, there's no way we can explain how this stuff would have gotten on the walls and other places that it was found on its own. The first thing I had tested was it any type of natural occurrence? Was it, some type of growing mold or something? And it isn't. It's a fluid that was applied. We didn't apply it. They're not sure of the composition. Makes no sense, if it was red soda pop or if it was, cow's blood or something like that. It isn't. And it was there. It was applied throughout the house. It was on the chandeliers. It was, everywhere. And we didn't put it there. No one else put it there but this entity. So.
My God. And you also found puddles of it on the floor, not just dripping through the walls. At one point, you were coming, I think it was on the third floor, and you found a big puddle of that blood, and you were like, oh my God. It's one thing to...
numerous times.
My God.
I state in the book, it started out as a red fluid. Sometimes it was clear. And then, oddly enough, it turned into an orange fluid. So, again, why and how and what that was all about, I'm not sure, but that's what we found.
That's incredible. And not only did you still keep piece of the wallpaper, but you also took pictures. And there's one picture in the book, that is, like a white mist. And, as a paranormal investigator, I take a lot of pictures. And I've been able a few times to catch these things on camera. And this one seemed very distinct. And, that was incredible. And, you took a lot of pictures. This one was one of the best. But I'm sure that you also have a lot of these pictures that you took throughout the years.
Yeah, which picture are you referring to now? I'm sorry.
Well, the one, it's a picture, terminal stair, Sandy's terminal stair.
Of the dog looking up the steps.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean that was amazing at the time. As I point out, I could see nothing, and why this thing would appear on a picture. Why the camera could pick it up, and my eyes couldn't. Obviously, the dog could see it because he was looking directly at it, and why it would show up on the picture and not be able to see it is, who knows how this stuff works. But that's why it's called supernatural.
Exactly. He has an outline of a face, and you look at the top left corner of the picture, it seems like an eye. That's a very creepy picture. And, there's did you take a lot of pictures during that time? Or because these days I think that's one of the things that people don't do enough. Taking pictures while they investigate. All they try to do is audio. That's cool. Yeah, I love to, but I mean, taking pictures old school, you can get good results.
Well, before when I did this was really before handheld phones. This was 10 years ago, so it's not like I don't even know phones. I had a cell phone, but it didn't have a camera in it at the time. And I was just taking pictures from a regular camera, and we would take it off to be developed. So I wasn't getting things instantaneously like you do today, and it wasn't digital. Did I take as many pictures as I should have? Well, it's how do you know when to take a picture, and you don't always have a camera with you. I mean, I was actually taking pictures of the blood on the wall when I came down the steps, and I saw our dog looking up at me with that stare, and just on a whim, I held the camera up in front of me and took the picture, and sure enough, I was taking a picture of the entity. So I caught it.
Yeah, and what was your reaction when you saw that picture? Because it validated what you were going through at the time.
Yes, absolutely. So,
and the fact that animals, can perceive things that we can't is another good sign. When you see your dog looking up like that, there's something going.
Well, again, I mean, just for the sake of your listeners who haven't read the book, I mean, as I detail, I would see our dog many times looking into what seemingly was an empty room and agitated and barking, and you could see he was looking at something and barking at something, and he'd always have this stare, almost like a dog pointing at a duck or something, and hunting dog. So when I saw him with that stare as I was coming down the steps, I basically realized that he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at this entity.
Exactly. Because, numerous cases and investigations, sometimes an animal can be a good help. And there's some instances, where a cat would sometimes lead you directly to the activity. The animals have a sixth sense that that maybe we have, but I think that the reason why, the field is not growing as fast as it could is I think that we rely too much on our equipment. And, while you're concentrating on your equipment, you're not listening, or you're not, using your sixth senses, which is, to me, the best piece of equipment that we have. And that's the thing with the paranormal investigation today, is that the emphasis is put on the equipment. And if it's just the equipment, why not just put equipment and let it investigate by itself? No, we still need us, to investigate and ask questions, and be able to interact with it. Because it's one thing to find out there's something, but it's something else to be able to interact and help and try to understand why it's there. Help if we can help. But in your case, it was not help for the entity. It was there to hurt you. It was there to hurt your family. It's totally different. I've never had to encounter something like that yet, and I don't even know how I would react. I'm asking since I read the book, I'm like, my God, if it was to happen during an investigation, I don't think I would be scared, but I would be. It would be challenging to know how to interact, and also knowing that you get to leave, but the people living there, they have to stay, and they're the ones that have to stay and and fight this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it started, I really wasn't aware of what was taking place, and it's not like I could, pick up the phone and call Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd, and they'd come up with their Ghostbuster ambulance. I mean, made for a good movie, but obviously there aren't, I guess these days there are paranormal investigators who claim that they can rid a house of spirits, but at that point in time, there was no one I could call. There was nothing I could do, and I just had to start trying to figure this out by myself. And the one thing I did know, once I started to kind of realize that this thing was evil, was to go to the church. And I wasn't Catholic at the time. My family and I were Protestant evangelical Christians, and eventually we ended up in the Diocese of Pittsburgh, and the Bishop Worrell, who's now Cardinal Worrell, assigned a team of priests to work with us, and that's the rest of the story is the book.
My goodness. And to this day, I know you kept a good relationship with Father Ron, and also with Adam Blay. And Adam now is actually training. That's what I learned during one of the documentaries talking about your story, is that Adam now is an expert demonologist training priests to perform exorcism. My God. That's incredible.
Yeah, he was really set off on a, when he first came to the house with the group from Penn State, and he was somewhat of a, as I understand it at the time, a faculty advisor. He came as an observer, and this whole event, I think, had a dramatic impact. Now, PRS and Ryan Buell, at the time, they weren't famous. They didn't have a television show. They went on to great fame, at least for a period of time. Adam didn't do that. Adam was deeply affected by what took place in the house. He came to the realization that this paranormal stuff can be dangerous, and it really shouldn't be somebody's hobby, because it can be dangerous. And it led him to begin a ministry of sorts to learn and to understand this whole world of demons and the demonic, and how it operates, and became part of the church.
I've had a chance to have on my podcast before Bishop James Long from Kentucky, and talking with him also opened my eyes to the danger of what we do. And that's what he was telling also in one of the Ghost Adventures episodes, is that when you're provoking and when you're going out there and you're like, okay, show yourself to me, show yourself to me. Do you really want that to happen? Do you really want to? You have to be careful, because demons play on their own terms. And that's one thing, that's when we investigate, what are we dealing with? Just came back from Lizzie Borden this weekend. And you enter the house, you can feel the energy there is different. You can feel it. There's something in that house. And, I went out there. We had a great investigation, but at the same time, I don't live there. and we came up with pretty good stuff. Like Mr. Borden, his name was Andrew. The first thing I had was Andrew about a minute in, and we're there for the whole night. So I was like, oh, it's a good start. Who's with me? Andrew. And that was the name of Mr. Borden. But at the same time, sometimes you can go for all night and have nothing. And provoking, to me, is the last thing in the world you should do. Because you don't know what you're dealing with. And also that when you leave, other people are getting to stay. And you have to be careful not to get things worse. Because there's a lot of, like you said, there's millions of teams now. And everybody, I'll get rid of this. How can we know? For you, it took 2 years. And how many masks and how many hours and how many fights to be able to get rid of it? And can we go out there in one night and say, okay, we're going to clean this place in one investigation? No, I don't think so.
No, and again, even something as routine as a ghost. I mean, they're there for a reason. And whatever reason that is, why that spirit doesn't, go on to the afterlife, we don't know. We don't know how this world works or why certain things happen. I mean, are ghosts in this state of purgatory for some particular reason? Are they held captive there? Do they have to stay there for a period of time? We just don't know. So to think that some paranormal group can go in and, maybe they can communicate and say, well, it's time for you to move on. It's time for you to move on. And maybe it's time for them to move on, but then they've been there, and for whatever reason they're there. I just don't think that this should be a subject for somebody's hobby, that this is what they do on a regular basis. Every Friday night we go out and we, I think documenting it or going out and saying, yes, we've found evidence that this house is haunted, but trying to get into the interactive mode and trying to, say you're going to cleanse a house or you're going to in some way impact the situation, I think that's when it gets dangerous.
You're right. And we have my friend Christopher asking you about when the name Moloch came about. What was it when you cut through the wall and you found? When did you find out that about the name?
That was during the second visit of TRS in February of 2005. They came one weekend, we cut through the wall, and as I recall, it was the next, they skipped a week, 2 weeks later they came back, and I believe that's when the name Moloch was first revealed to, I think, to Adam Bly, and that's the same time that his forehead was scratched and actually bled from a result of the scratches.
My God, exactly, with the drawing and everything. So yeah, that's what Danielle is saying. She obviously read the book also on Twitter, and so how long did it take for you to to come up? Like you said, you wrote the book, but to be convince yourself to put it out, and to because the book has been out for about 6 months now.
Well, no, it was just the book. The book was just released August the 5th.
Oh, okay. Because I bought it on the first week that it came out. Then.
Yeah, they the publisher decided to put it up for sale on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and so on back the very end of January. In fact, as soon as they got the cover of the book done, they put it up. We were still in the midst of the editing process. The book technically wasn't in its final form yet, and they had it up for sale. And it really sold in spurts through that time as it got more publicity when I was on Coast to Coast, and then once the television reports started and they hit the internet and played across the country, the book it sold like mad, before it was even released. And I was requested to do a lot of interviews and so on, and it was, a lot of folks wanted to read the book, but it was still months from actual publication.
That's incredible. And now, do you think you're going to do a follow-up to this book? With Al, now you cope with it. And do you think that down the road, you could become a counselor to paranormal teams or paranormal investigators or demonologists, that would seek advice, for...
That's certainly not anything that I would, that I'm looking to do. But I can tell you I do understand dealing with this stuff thoroughly. I know what works. I know what affects it. And, just tonight I was leaving my office to go home and eat dinner so I could get back here to take your call, and I got a call from a woman in New Jersey who's having all kind of problems in her house, and apparently she can't get folks to help her. I guess it comes as a part of the territory when you write a book like this. People are going to find a way to contact you, and we'll see what happens and where it all goes. I'm not looking to be any Ghostbuster or anything, but I certainly can tell people how it works.
Yeah, you've lived through it, and you fought through it, and you never gave up, and that's at least people can find inspiration from your story, and also understand that it's not, for a lot of people, paranormal investigating or ghost hunting is about the thrill. It's about thrill seeking. Oh my God, they wish something's going to happen, but that's the one thing about it is it's dangerous. I always told my teammates about it. We go on a hunt tonight. We're leaving the four of us, but we might come back with more than just the four of us. We never know. We always have to be careful, and that's why respect and not provoking and not. Doing anything, to get things worse is very important. And even if you're not provoking it, if you're dealing with something negative, it might attack you either way. It happened to me before. It's a lot of stuff has happened over the years, and you have to be prepared.
Yeah, there's no question that even, with the PRS group and, Ryan Buell attested to this, that, members of his team and even himself were affected deeply by what they experienced at the house. And in fact, after they were there the second time, the priest involved didn't want them to come back again, that they had basically served their purpose and helped us flush this thing out. But further involvement by them, wasn't something that we needed. Only Adam on his own then decided to get involved more deeply. But the PRS they went their own way and became famous in other situations. And Ryan Buell, to his credit, I have to say. I told him that I wanted no notoriety. I didn't want to be identified, or our house specifically identified in any way on, his great following and his blog and everything. And he honored that. He made reference to what took place in Pittsburgh, but he was never specific until later on when I finally told him that I had a book that I was going to publish, and I said he could then talk about it all he wanted.
Yeah, because that's the thing. When something like that happens, the last thing you want is a circus around you. And were you able to, for the most part, keep the media out of it?
Well, when it was taking place, only a handful of people knew. I mean, members of, my own extended family had no idea what was taking place. So it certainly was nothing that we advertised, and it was probably a couple years before, I even told anybody about it, what had taken place. And, when I finally decided to start working to take all of the notes that I had kept, a diary through the whole thing, and to turn that into a narrative that eventually became the book.
Exactly. And now, looking back, if you know somebody was to come to you and say, Mr. Cranmer, I got this thing going on right now in my home, what is the first step you would tell that person to do? The first step to be ready for battle against something like that, what would be the first thing to do if something like that was to happen, in their home?
Well, that happened to me. As I made reference to a woman that called me, and this is not the first time she called me, and I had advised her to go to her local Catholic diocese, and I think the Diocese of Trenton, New Jersey, and unfortunately, I think there's a lot of folks, even in the clergy, that don't understand, or in a way maybe don't believe what this stuff is, or that it exists. And sometimes they can find relief. I just hope, again, that what this book does is motivate more clergy, both Protestant, Catholic and Protestant, to take this stuff more seriously, because I think as our culture becomes more and more of a faithless, godless culture, that it's going to open the door more and more to evil. And I think we're already seeing that now, on the nightly news, as you hear more and more inexplicable, tragic, heinous crimes that are committed by people that all of a sudden take an AK-47 and go into a school and start shooting kids. Why does that happen? I think it's beyond just a mental disorder.
And the world's become more dangerous place to live, and obviously, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. But at the same time, reading your book, I was like, there's still good people, and there's a reason to believe and to be inspired. Is that if like in your book, good prevail, and through faith and through that, I really think the thing that really made the difference was your never give up attitude. I think that, in the end, it might have just said, what, screw it. I'm not going to be able to, you just kind of abandon and quit. And I won't be able to win, because you were always coming back, always coming back with new ways. And your faith never wavered. And the fact that you were able to surround yourself with great people and seek good advice made a big difference also.
Well, before you compare it to kind of a boxing match, that's what it felt like many times. And I think that same kind of determination, not to get knocked out, but at the same time to take the punches and to respond in kind. It's something that you just kind of have to reach down deep inside you and say, we're going to do this. And we did, and again, I use that analogy. I know one time I used a quote from Rocky Balboa. It's not how hard you can hit. Many times it's how hard you can get hit and still come back. And
keep moving forward. You're right. That's my best quote of all time. And reading your book, I was like, my God, it's so true. It is so true.
And that was clear. I mean, it was how much we could take. How much this thing was going to throw at us, and through the grace of God and the power of God and Jesus Christ, we were able to persevere. I recently was doing a book signing in a Barnes & Noble, which is an experience in and of itself. I mean, I was in politics for years and, dealt with people as a politician and so on, but when you write a book and you're there and people want to know about your story, one young woman came to me, and I think this was very telling. She said, what really attracted me most to your book was your faith, because I have none, and I grew up with no faith, and it's foreign to me, and I'm very, very interested in this faith that sustains you. And I said, bingo. That's why I wrote the book right there. So at least one person got it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how I feel. That's exactly how I feel, because sometimes, you're looking for reasons to keep the faith. And reading your book gave me another reason to believe that if you stand up to whatever it is, no matter how hard the situation looks, and no matter how hopeless the situation looks, if you keep going and if you keep moving forward, you can do it. And you were able to, and not only for you, but for your family. And to be able to keep your family intact through that ordeal, to me, was a testament of courage and a lot of determination, because it was not easy for neither you, your wife, and your kids. And it was an uphill battle. And you were able to, to go through it. And you still look to me like a very healthy and sound man, and still, of course, it left scars. I'm sure it did. And but in the end, you still seem to me like a man that is very positive in life, and it didn't destroy you.
Well, it certainly gave me a whole different perspective on life, and the way I view life now. When you experience the supernatural and you have kind of like one foot in that world, and another analogy I used a lot, and maybe shouldn't have as much, because I understand a lot of younger people may not remember the movie The Matrix like I do. It seems just like yesterday, but it's been a few years. You have this whole parallel world around us that people can't see. And that's the case. We have this world of good and evil around us, battling for the souls of humans, and causing evil and causing good to take place. And I've experienced that parallel world, and I know it's there. So faith to me becomes less of a fact of faith and more of reality. I know. I know it's there. I'm not hoping, I'm not faithful that it is true. I know that it's true. So, the apostles who saw Jesus walk on water or raise someone from the dead, they had a much different faith than those of us who just read about it. So that's my perspective. And I end the book with that. I end the book saying that along with that reality and that knowledge comes a responsibility. And in my case, I felt it was a responsibility to let people know about it.
And I'm thankful that you did that, because, for me as a paranormal investigator, reading a book like this, it changes your perspective on how you conduct an investigation. And like you said, the responsibility that we have to make sure, it's always something I took very seriously, to never get things worse. But, there's some cases we had to go back to the same place to investigate 5 or 6 times. And, but to be able to say, okay, I cleaned the place, it's something that, and I never had to face something as, like you did. I never had to face something like that. And, but if it ever happens, at least I know that it can be done. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage, and a lot of, determination, but you can do it.
Well, again, in our case, it worked, and I know that there are many cases where it is not as difficult, and it can be dealt with quicker. But then that's the same thing as I understand with certain exorcisms, which are very rare. But then some people that are oppressed by demons, sometimes it can be dealt with in a few sessions, and sometimes it's a long drawn-out battle. I know that the true story that the Exorcist movie was based upon was one of those cases where the individual, the young boy that was possessed, it was a long process and a long battle before they were able to finally expel the demon from him. I was a 12-year-old boy, as I recall.
Exactly. It happened in St. Louis, and it was not like the movie. It never is. But you know what? If they ever make a movie out of your story, I would be the first one to go and watch it. And I can't wait to see Paranormal Witness, because we're running out of time. There's only 2 minutes left, and I want people to be able to find you on Twitter. On Twitter, you're more on Facebook. And on Facebook, your page is Demon of Brownsville Road. And your website is demonbrownsville.com. And people can buy the book there's a link on your webpage to buy the book.
Webpage to both Amazon and Barnes & Noble. I mean, the people at Barnes & Noble, at least locally in Pittsburgh, have just been so supportive of the book, and quite frankly, they couldn't keep it in stock. But even all the book signings and the talks that I'm doing, they support them with, they come with books. So my hat's off to Barnes & Noble.
That's incredible. And Mr. Cranmer, it was an honor for me to have you on the podcast, and hopefully in the future we can have another one. And I'm looking forward to watch Paranormal Witness. And I encourage anybody to read your book. Whether you're a paranormal enthusiast or not, it doesn't matter. It's a story of faith and belief, and never give up. And whether you like paranormal or not, doesn't really matter. I think that everybody can read this book and be inspired by it. And I want to thank you for having the guts to write this book, because a lot of people would not. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I appreciate the opportunity. And certainly, anytime you want to talk to me, just let me know.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Cranmer. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. Good night.
Bye-bye. So, there's 20 seconds left on the podcast. I want to thank everybody for joining, and it was an honor. This man was incredible, and the battle that he faced is absolutely incredible. You can buy the book, The Demon of Brownsville Road, and I think it'll be the best $10 you ever spent in your life. So, thanks for listening to the podcast tonight, and see you next